Greetings, everybody. Sam Windisch Gunworks back at the bench again, and finally getting along with this project here. I know it's been a while. Just had a whole lot of stuff on the plate with my normal day job taking me over to Utah and being out in the field and everything. That and making muzzle brakes like crazy. Put this guy on the back burner for just a little bit. So we're all back and ready to go again. So we left off with us getting this the barrel fitted into the slide, and we're ready to talk about fitting the barrel into the frame. But before we do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about feed ramps and the different types of feed ramps, and how that kind of plays into fitting your gun. Now, I mentioned earlier with this barrel that this is a Clark Para ramp cut. This is a very popular ramp cut for non-45 caliber barrels. The same with the Wilson, the Wilson ramp cut. So there's typically three. Well, I'll talk about a fourth, but it's really just a modification of this one. There's three real ramp cuts you're going to see. You're going to see what's called standard or GI ramp cut, and that is what you're normally going to see on a government length 45. There will be no extra meat hanging down here. Yeah, this little extra lug coming down here, that's not going to be there. You're just going to have this little lip from the feed ramp of the barrel and coming to your lugs down here, and that's it. Again, that was the original design from the government model 45 caliber. That works just fine and works perfect in 45 caliber government lengths. It works in commander lengths. Once you get to like your Defender or like your subcompact models, your 3-inch barrels, your officer models, you might want to start looking at different feed ramps because the angle of the drop is much more extreme in those real short lengths. Non 45 caliber barrels like this 9mm, you can still use a standard GI style feed ramp. But you might have some issues with it feeding. So, and that's really where these other feed ramps came into play, was non 45 caliber barrels. So this one, like I said, this is a Clark Para ramp cut, and what makes it a Clark Para ramp cut? That's a tongue twister. Is the radius lug down here on the bottom of the foot? There's the radius foot down here. The Wilson is going to be straight across, not radiused. It's just going to be flat, straight across. It'll be a 90 degree. So let me grab a pointer here. So we see the radius lug down here, and that comes 90 degrees off of the bottom of the actual feed ramp here. Okay. The Wilson is going to be 90 degrees here, and then it's just going to be flat, straight across. There's nothing wrong with that ramp cut. It works just fine. Some people will say that this one is stronger because geometrically the strongest shape is an arc, whereas 90 degrees, flat surfaces are not as strong as radius surfaces, as arced surfaces, and that is true. I like. I use this ramp cut a lot myself just because it's easy to fit. It's easy to cut the ramp cut into the frame. You don't need any special tools or special, long-reaching cutting tools to get down into the frame to cut that and adjust the feed ramp in the frame. This is a very simple ramp cut to work with in the frame, so that's why I like using this. Also, it's pretty darn strong. So we got the GI, we got the Wilson. We got Clark Para, and then there's a fourth one that you really don't see too often. It's called the Clark Para Listener, or the Listener modification to the Clark Para ramp cut. And all that is there's no special frame you have to do or anything special. Like I said before, this is 90 degrees right here, and it creates a 90 degree corner. And as I just talked about geometric strengths, the strongest shape geometrically is a radius surface. So what the listener modification does, it's also called a listener radius, is in this corner right here, they just put a tight little radius in there, okay, all the way around. And what that's there to do is strengthen this junction. It's not really a joint, but to strengthen this area to keep, to prevent anything from shearing off or breaking off. And really that's kind of the reason why the Clark Pear ramp cut came around, was people weren't fitting Wilson, the Wilson Nolan ramp cut feed ramps properly, and they were breaking off this part, or they were cracking. They were cracking right here. Okay. If you fit your barrel properly, you're not going to have to worry about that. Okay. If you fit your barrel, you fit your barrel link and your slide stop properly, you'll never have to worry about breaking off the foot of your feed ramp. Okay. Breaking off the tips, in a GI feed ramp, you're only looking at like that right there, right? So, a big problem for people not fitting their feed ramps into the frames properly is they'll break off the feet. They'll shear those off with repeated abuse and extended use. It'll end up cracking and eventually breaking off and shearing off, and that's no good. Which is another reason why this strength is here, or it's nice to have this big hunk of metal down here, is there's virtually no way you're going to break this off. All right, so that's the 3 ramp cuts that you're going to see. Like I said, I use the Clark Pear ramp cut for reasons I already stated. Now, your frame also has to match, all right? So this frame came from Stealth Arms already cut for it. However, if you have a mill and the frame you want to use doesn't come with the Clark Pear ramp cut already, fear not, it is very simple to cut this in. You just deck that down to the prescribed depth, and then you take a 3/8 inch cutter, come down and just mill it straight up like that. Okay, and there's certain dimensions that you're going to have to look up. I'm not going to explain all that because we're not going to cut that ramp cut. It's already cut in there. Okay. The Wilson cut, modifying that and fitting that, again, if you have to push the shoulders back anywhere, you need this, long specialty cutter to get in there. It's got this bushing that sits in here that keeps it nice and lined up and centered to push the shoulder back and everything. It's a total pain in the butt. So that's why I like using this one. So what we're trying to accomplish today here with fitting this barrel into this frame is, one, we still have to take care of these lower lugs here. Okay, so we're going to pop the barrel in. As you see, I've already installed a link. I installed the number 3 link, which is the nominal size. We're going to fit these to the slide stop. Okay, and then we also need to make sure that we have proper contact with the frame while the barrel is in the downlinked position. And what does that look like? Well, that means we're going to have simultaneous contact between the back end here of your foot and the bottom of your feed ramp. So when the barrel is sitting in the frame and it is in the downlinked position or the unlocked position, we want it to make contact at the same time with both parts, okay, top and bottom, on the cuts in the frame. Now that's important because when the barrel is in the downlinked position, I'm just going to pop the slide stop in here for animation purposes. Okay, when the barrel unlinks, okay, unlocks, get your words straight. When it unlocks, it comes down like this, and it's also tilted at roughly 1 degree, 0.87 degrees, okay, 1 degree, we're just going to call it 1 degree, all right? It is angled down slightly. Now the only thing stopping this, the barrel in its travel, is one of 2 things. It's either going to be the link, okay, which you don't want. It's either going to stop like that because it just can't go back any further. Now it's pulling against the slide stop pin, or it's going to hit against the frame. Now, which of those 2 do you think is the stronger option, and which do you want your barrel to stop on? Well, this is not as strong as this. Okay, you want your barrel to stop against your frame. And a good test, if you got a 1911 at home, if you want to check it, what you do is have your assembled gun, push it muzzle down. Let me grab one. If you want to check to see if your slide stop is fit properly, what you'll do is you'll take your slide stop, you'll pull it out, rotate it down, right? You'll rotate it down. And so that way it's not locked into the frame. Okay, have it pushed all the way through, but just pointed down. And you're just going to push your muzzle down like that until it stops, and then you're going to see, with your slide stop facing this way, is it loose? Okay. If it's loose and it can spin, wiggle freely, that's a good thing, because that means your barrel is stopping against the frame and not your slide stop. If your slide stop is tight, okay, like this, push down, stopped, and you're hanging down here like I told you about. Okay. If it's tight, that means your link is stopping your barrel travel, and that's going to put a lot of wear on your slide stop. Okay, you're going to see it start to wallow out. It's going to put wear on your link. It's going to put wear and stress on your link pin. It's going to put wear and stress on all the parts of your gun you don't want to have. And that's what causes failures later on. Yes, the 1911 is a finicky gun. Get over it. So that's the overall goal of what we want to do today. Get this thing properly fitted to the slide stop pin and into the frame to where we have contact on both portions. All right. So you'll see some extra parts out on the table today that we're going to use. So for the first time, we're seeing our recoil spring. This is our 12-pound recoil spring, commander length. The Wilson Combat guide rod. Get it out, Sam. And this is a part I just made last night. This is just 303 stainless spring plug. These are super easy to make. If you got a little bench lathe or something at home and you want to save yourself $10 and say, hey, look at this part I made for my gun, hey, make one of these. Super simple, okay? So, and you would never have known if I didn't tell you that. Okay, so there you go. So we're going to use this today. Make sure that the thing can spring around and everything fits inside all nice and hunky-dory. Now, once we get that done, we're going to come up with another problem that we're going to solve in the next episode. And that is, if you're paying attention all the way from the beginning, we have a government length frame and a commander length slide. So it's something that you got to pay attention to here is the slide travel, okay? If you know dimensions of government and commander length slides, you know that the actual rail lengths are different. And it's roughly about 100 thou, okay? So the government length rails are roughly 100 thousandths or a tenth of an inch, in simple terms, longer, all right? So I'm going to have to put this in the mill and cut these back about a tenth of an inch and then re-radius the corners. Now, the reason for that, sometimes you have to and sometimes you don't. It all depends on the slide and frame combination, okay? The reason for that is the breech face has to be able to clear. Let me see if I can. Yeah, you guys can see it. The disconnector hole. Okay, it's got to be able to clear that. Now it just barely clears it right now. Would this gun function as is? Maybe, but I may have some trigger resetting issues. Okay. Let me get this gun back out. Okay, in a standard, setup, we've got plenty of clearance back here. There's probably, I'm going to say, well, now that I push it all the way back, that was just in the slide lock. If I push that back, there's a whole mess of clearance back there, probably a third of an inch clearance between the back of the breech face, between the front edge of the breech face and that disconnector hole. Okay, so we're not going to get it all the way back there, but what we need to do is give it some clearance. Okay. At the same time, we also need to ensure that the slide stop can properly engage into the notch, which it already can. And so when that stops, what I'm looking at right now is when, let me get this thing all the way in there. okay, is when this thing is fully engaged, right? Where's it going to sit? So right now, it's not going to sit where it would normally sit on a Commander style frame, because there are a couple of differences, right? So the breech face is actually going to be sitting over the disconnector while it's in slide lock. And obviously we push that down and this thing comes forward into battery, and it doesn't matter anyways, right? But in the recoil stroke, we got to give that a little bit of clearance. So we'll get to really solving that in the last, dang it. Oh, that was silly, wasn't it? So after we get all that stuff, we're going to solve that problem. And again, that's the simple fix. But here we go. So we're going to get set up with a couple other things, and we'll be right back. All right, here we go. We got our lug cutter out in case we need to use that now. And so we got our barrel bushing on. Like I said before, I've already installed a number 3 link, which is the nominal size, into the barrel. And you guys don't need to see me do that. If you guys want to see me fight with the link, go back and watch the last video where we did the fitting of that bull barrel, and you'll watch me fight with one all day long. So the first thing that I want to do when fitting a barrel into a frame is I just want to install the barrel into the frame without the slide, and I want to see how it moves, okay? And what this tells me is are the bottom lugs too big? Do they need to be cut? Do they need to be fit? Are they too tight? You know, what's going on? So just like that, I've got it pinned into the frame, and I'm just looking at how it moves. Okay, so does it hit the feed ramp in the unlocked position? Yes, it does. It hits it all the way down, and can it come all the way up? So yes. And this is kind of this is my experience with fusion barrels. I know I've kind of said some bad things about fusion and some of their other parts so far, but when it comes to their barrels and it comes to their slides, I cannot fault them at all. So if there is any fitting to be done, it's going to be very minimal. But yeah, this barrel has full free range of motion with the slide stop in there, just pinned into the frame. So all this does, this doesn't mean this barrel doesn't need to be touched anymore. All this means is that with this slide stop and that link and this barrel and this frame, is that it moves freely, okay? So now what we need to do, we're not in the clear yet, okay? We're going to put it into the slide, and we're going to work the slide back and forth just to make sure, well, not to make sure, but to see if there's any friction points and where are those friction points and do we need to take care of them. The big thing I'm looking at right now is this bushing, actually, because as you saw, this is fit pretty darn tight, and I want to make sure that even though it's a very tight fit up front, that it's not so tight we're going to cause springing in the barrel. And I'll explain what springing is here in just a second. So let's get this thing installed. Link down. And let's just torque this thing over. Doesn't even need to be centered up, but why not? That's just a good looking combo, right? Okay, so we got that in there. Make sure the link goes down. Okay. Oh, I can already feel it. Giving me some resistance. Okay, so working the slide back and forth, I can feel, oh man, yeah, there's quite a bit of resistance going on. In fact, it stopped right here, and this is nowhere near the end of its travel. So what does this mean? Well, does it mean that the lower lugs aren't cut enough? Well, highly unlikely considering we just did our test and we showed that the barrel moved freely without the slide on. So if all we did was add the slide to the equation, well, that means there's got to be something with the slide causing some friction. So where does it come from? Well, this is the fun part about fitting parts. We get to find out where the friction is. The friction is not coming. There's a couple things we can do just to start narrowing it down. Like I said, my big concern right now is the bushing for springing, to make sure that we're not springing the barrel. And what that kind of means loosely is, I'll try to give you a graphical representation without making all the little boys giggle. Here. So if we got the bushing right here and it's wrapped up against the end of the barrel is hinging like this as it goes back and forth, okay? So try not to giggle, all you little boys and girls out there, as I do this, but this is kind of the best way to explain it. The barrel is sitting like this when it's locked up, okay, in its locked position. Now, when we unlock it and the barrel begins to move backwards, okay, the barrel tilts down, okay? So the barrel begins to tilt down as the slide comes back, and then it comes back forward, and the slide lock engages with the lower lugs, and that barrel gets pushed back up into battery, okay? And the bushing comes back over the muzzle and grabs it real tight. So what is springing? Well, if the bushing is too tight, okay, if it's too tight, what's going to happen is it's going to want to lock it in one specific spot, which may not be its locked position. Okay, it may actually want to grab it and lock it right here, slightly down. And so when the slide stop, illustrated by my index finger here, pushes the barrel up, it's actually bending and pressing against it, springing it, okay, like a spring, okay. Springing that barrel upwards, and it's putting a lot of torsion and stress on the barrel where you don't want it, okay, and it's putting stress into the bushing, and that's how you crack bushings. If you ever had a barrel bushing crack, it's because of this issue right here, and because that barrel bushing wasn't fit properly. It was probably fit way too tight, which you might have thought was super mega awesome, and it probably was. The gun was probably exceedingly accurate up until the bushing cracked, okay. So how do we do that? Well, inside the bushing, it's not a perfect straight cylinder, okay? It actually has a bevel on the back end of it to accommodate for that angled downlink. Now, this issue can be illustrated perfectly by I think it's called a true radius. I think they call it a true radius. Barrel bushing made by Harrison Design. Or at least sold by Harrison Design. It might actually be Bunker Arms, I think that makes them. But the inside of the bushing is actually a rounded surface all the way around, and that way it only grips the barrel on one, a very, very tiny contact point. And the rest of it is radius like this, all along the inside of it, to allow the barrel to tilt while it unlocks and relocks. Now, I'm going to take this apart and I'll show you what's going on, and I'm going to show you right here why I think I still need to clean it up. And I mentioned that I probably still need to clean this up earlier, and this is why. If I look right here, so right now the slide is stopped, okay? If I look right in here at the bottom of the slide, well, this is actually the upper lug of the slide on the barrel hood. I'm seeing there's like either zero clearance or exceedingly small amounts of clearance, okay? So I'm potentially getting an issue where the upper lugs are rubbing against the top of the barrel. Now, how do you remedy that? Well, you sand down the top of the barrel hood. Well, no, don't do that, okay? If this is an issue, what we're gonna end up doing is dropping down the top of the feed ramp in the frame, okay? To allow the barrel to sit further down in its downlinked position. Now, this is also a very common thing because just like all things need to be fitted, we need, if you remember, we need both surfaces on the feed ramp of the barrel to be contacting the frame at the same time. The easiest way to ensure that you can accomplish this while selling a frame is to make sure that the height of the feed ramp is too tall. That way you can lower it down. If you think about radial swing, okay, the more we allow this thing to come down in its radial, in its arc, okay, the further back it is also moving. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart. We're going to color this thing up with some Sharpie, and we're going to run it again. We're going to see where our contact points are, and we're going to either confirm or discover where our contact points are and where we need to fit. Now, I guarantee we're going to have some rubbing up here. That's fine. It's where it's rubbing that's going to make the difference. Okay. We're going to see if we're rubbing up top on here, and we're going to see where our contact points are inside the frame with the feed ramp. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to do this off camera. We'll come right back. All right. So we got our barrel colored up with some Sharpie. And I got the bushing off, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that surface inside of the bushing works, okay? So if you look in your bushing, if you take your bushing off, and this one's going to be just a little bit sized differently because it's a commander, not a government. Most people have governments, but take your bushing out, and if you're not really that familiar with it, check out how much of the surface inside here is actually contacting the barrel, and it's very minimal. So on this, we're looking at maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe just a hair over 1/8 of an inch of surface inside here that is actually grabbing onto the muzzle. And when you saw me machine this, that's all I was cutting, was just that tiny little 1/8 of an inch spot right there. Now, that's going to work in our favor because, like I was talking about before, with the whole linking and downlinking and the angle, if I need to clean it up in here a little bit, it makes it a lot easier. And if I am going to do that, let me get a finer pointing device here. It's just going to be this bottom edge right here, and only in the back. Okay, I want to leave the front as intact as possible, but I'm just going to, and I'm probably going to do it by hand with some sandpaper wrapped on a dowel or a drill or something. And I'm just going to work this bottom edge right here to allow the barrel to kind of swing down. Okay, because if it's springing and binding right now, and that's what's causing this thing to rub or to stop the slide travel, it's because it's not being allowed to link down all the way, which I don't think is the issue. I could be wrong, but that's why we do this, and that's why we see. So I've also got the barrel hood Sharpied up and the upper lugs on the barrel colored. Now, if you do this, don't be surprised if you always see rubbing on the lugs, these upper lugs right here, and that may be coming just from when you install it in the slide, when you actually physically put it in the slide. So you kind of have to know what you're looking for. So we got that colored up, and then I've got the lower lugs colored as well. Not the lugs, I'm sorry, but the feed ramp. Okay, I've got both surfaces of the feed ramp colored up, and again, these are the two surfaces we want contacting with the frame. And you can see I've colored the top of the feed ramp right there in the frame, right? So now that I'm holding 6 things at once, we'll go ahead and get this all put together. Now, I know for a fact, well, let me talk about this too. You may not be aware. Where are my dang calipers at? Okay, on your barrel, okay, the muzzle end is going to be just a hair wider than this part, okay? Then we'll call it the body, the main barrel, okay? So we'll take that, 579 and a half-ish, okay? But if I go back here, 572, okay? And again, that's to allow this, once that slide comes back and the bushing travels over it, to give it some breathing room to tilt down, all right? So I know I'm going to see contact with this up here because of how tight it's fit, and that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. I want that. What I don't want is contact like up here on the top, like scraping across the top. Okay, I don't want a big scraping mark across the top, because that means as it's downlinked, the front portion here of the bushing is just grinding across the top of it, and that's what's causing it. But yeah, you're going to see some wear around there, so don't freak out about that. Yeah, because this thing is like Okay, there we go. Yeah, so we're already getting the wear pattern all the way around the top, so I'm just going to recolor that before we install it. And you can tell the difference between like scratching wear and sliding wear, because if you look, you can still see the blue on there. It just looks like something came and rubbed it, right? Whereas like I call hard contact, a hard contact point is just you're not gonna see the marker, in this case a Sharpie or your Dicom or whatever, pick your poison. It's just gonna straight be rubbed off. Okay. So let's get in. I think the Sharpie is actually literally causing this to be too tight. The thickness of the Sharpie is literally making this too tight. Oh my gosh. Okay. Be right back. Okay. Got that cleaned up. All right. Yeah, it was definitely the thickness of the Sharpie. And that's kind of crazy. It shows you how tight this thing is. So what we're going to do for that is I just colored the inside of the bushing, and we'll look for transfer. Okay, so we're going to look for the blue to transfer onto the barrel and where it does that, instead of where the blue being rubbed off the barrel by the bushing. So without further ado and interruption, okay. Now again, you just kind of saw that the barrel kind of slide through. So you see just that right there, just installing it. We got some wear marks. I'm just going to recolor that, because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just going to recolor all that right there. Okay. So that's there. Let's turn this just like it would be properly installed. Looks good to me. And we'll pop our slide stop back in, and we're just going to work it and see what rubs. Okay, so I got it all the way back, and I'm just kind of looking at the muzzle now to see. See, I got some color transfer there. I got some on the bottom. Okay, I'm seeing fresh wear right there in the front of the barrel hood and kind of towards the back again on the top. We're just going to do this again. And same way there. Yeah, so you can see now, okay, we're wearing right here and right here. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that the barrel hood is not downlinking far enough. Now, what's the cause of that? Well, let's talk about the possible causes before we talk about what is causing it in this specific gun. Barrel not downlinking far enough. So, what controls the arc of the barrel and its downlink? Well, that is the barrel link itself. So, is our barrel link just too long? Well, we can't determine that because we haven't determined yet if the barrel is engaging the frame properly while it's all the way downlinked, and we can't do that. Well, now the barrel is already is linked all the way down. Okay, so the barrel is touching. Sorry, I'm about to put my head in frame here, but I gotta see. Okay, so the barrel is contacting down here. I can just see with my eye. Now what we need to do is take this apart again and see where it's contacting, to see if it's contacting properly enough. Is it stopping on the top of the frame? Is it stopping on the vertical impact surface? Is it contacting both perfectly right now? Haha, fat chance. So do we need to do something to the frame to allow this barrel to sit down lower? I.e., like I talked about before, is dropping the top of the feed ramp in the on the frame, is dropping that surface down so that the barrel can sit a little bit lower and clear the upper lugs in its travel. Okay, that's what I'm going to look at right now, and that is what I suspect is our #1 culprit. The bushing actually looks okay. I'm seeing some transfer up here. I can see rub marks on the metal, and that's perfectly normal. If you have an older blue to 1911 and you notice all the wear up here from your bushing, again, you know that is perfectly normal. So I'm going to take this apart and we're going to look at the frame, okay? So let's pop you out. Aha! Okay. Now, let me see if you guys can see this. I don't know if you can. Okay, there is a tiny little rub mark. I'm probably going to be very unsuccessful at this. So, bear. No, you're not going to do that? Okay, let me come right back. Okay. So, right here, you can see a contact point from where the barrel was hitting the top of this surface. Okay. So right there, that tells me that is exactly where the barrel is stopping, and it is stopping hard. Now it's just a little point, but that tells me I can also see some other kind of wear contact points kind of around here. Okay, but that right there is enough. That tells me that the barrel is stopping right here, and that's what's keeping it from going down any. That's keeping the barrel from clearing the slide, and that's why the slide is rubbing on the top of the barrel hood. So is it a link issue? Well, not yet. It could be, but we haven't gotten that far yet. We can't determine that yet. I'm not seeing any blue transfer on the vertical impact surface. I didn't Sharpie that because I just can't get a Sharpie. And that's actually a better job for Dykem, and I actually don't have any on hand right now. I should probably get some. But let's take a look at the barrel as well. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so here's our barrel. No real wear there. And aha, again. Right here, we see, let me grab my pointer, straddling the camera here. We see right here the corresponding wear mark on the feed ramp of the barrel, on the bottom of the feed ramp, from where it was contacting the frame. So we know right now that that is what's causing our issue. So how do we go about fixing it? Well, you file that surface down. Well, no, stop. No. All right. Normally, we would always say modify the cheapest part of the gun. Not in this case. Okay, right here is a feed ramp issue. Now this is, well, that barrel actually costs more than this frame, but that's not the point. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to file. Okay, we're going to be very delicate, and we're going to file a little bit at a time. We're going to take a lot of measurements, and we're going to go slow, and we're going to get it right. And we're going to go until, one, that barrel has clearance from the slide. And I'm looking for 10 thousandths or so of clearance at least. At no rubbing whatsoever as that slide comes back. And also, again, contacting the vertical impact surface and on the top here. Okay. So we're going to get set up to file this guy down, and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back, and we've got our frame set up in the vise. And just a side note about putting aluminum parts into your hardened steel vise jaws, give them a little bit of love, okay? Just a little copper shim stock cut is a little soft jaw. Give them a little, just to protect your frame from getting all scratched up, okay? What we're going to be doing is I'm going to be using this file here and filing the surface that we're contacting down, okay? Now, I've talked about measuring tools in the past. If all you got is a set of these, a set of calipers, that's fine. Just develop a technique for using them accurately, and you'll be okay, all right? So I'll take a measurement with these first, and then I'll compare them against the depth micrometer. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a measurement from the top of the deck here on the frame to the top of the feed ramp surface that we're going to be filing down. Okay, so and I'll do as I always do and take this measurement a couple times. We got 301. Got 301. 3015. Now with the stare at depth micrometer, $30 Chinese micrometer or stare at measuring tool, which do you think is more accurate? Okay, so we're looking at 298.5. Okay. Honestly, it doesn't matter what that measurement is. It's just a starting point to reference as we file down. Okay. If you want to look up the actual specs for how far that should be down on a Clark Para ramp cut, by all means, go ahead. If you want to try to hit that spec, go for it. I would advise you against that. Always go fit to your part. Okay. Not to the spec, because you don't know if that part is perfectly in spec or not. Okay, and that's kind of where working with some parts and some frames gets kind of dicey. There's a couple frame manufacturers I absolutely will not work with. I already talked about Tactical Machining. I absolutely will not work on one of their frames, and Rock Island is another one. I'm not saying you can't make a gun that works or that their guns, Rock Island's guns, don't work. They absolutely work. I've shot Rock Islands. They function just fine. But when it comes to putting other parts into them, you can begin to run into some serious issues with tolerances and parts fitting and being in spec and stuff like that. So I'm not the only guy that works on 1911s that will not work on Rock Islands. Yeah, anyways, back to the point at hand here. So according to the depth micrometer, we're sitting at 0.298.5 down from the top of the deck, and that's where we're gonna go. Now, just based on my experience of doing this in the past, it's not gonna take much for us just to get that slide to clear the barrel. Maybe 5 thousandths or so would get us to where the slide is gonna go over the barrel. But again, that's not the only objective that we're aiming for here. We want to fit both contact points of the barrel to both the top of the here and the vertical impact surface. That's what we're fitting to. Now, in the process of doing that, we're going to create the clearance to get the slide over the barrel hood. Okay, so if you're doing this, don't just stop when you get the slide to clear the barrel hood. All right. So locking lug file, again, as I've said, you're going to see me use this file a lot. It's super handy. This is aluminum, so this is going to go pretty fast. But we're going to file across the surface here, and then we're just going to take a measurement and see where we're at. So nice, easy strokes with a good sharp file, and making sure to keep that file nice and flat. Keeping good control of that file as we go across. If you're filing aluminum, or if you have experience filing aluminum, you know that the particulate that comes off is pretty gummy. Aluminum in the machining world is called a gummy metal because it just kind of doesn't shear like steel does. So you need to make sure you're cleaning out your file. That's where I was going with that. You want to clean your file out like that. You see all that junk? That's all aluminum, and it just gets stuck in your file. So you can just use a little brush, or what's called a file card, which is a brush specifically designed for cleaning out the teeth and files. They call it a card. It's not a card at all. It's a brush, but make sure you cleaning the junk out of there. It keeps your file sharp, and it keeps it cutting really easily. The sharp file is like one of the best feeling things in the world when you're just slicing through material. And I'm really sorry if my head is in frame right now, but I gotta be able to look down at the material. So okay, we're going to stop right there, and we're going to take a measurement. So we start at 298.5. at almost 302. So that's almost 4 thousandths. Oops. So it's almost 4 thousandths of an inch that we cleared out of there. I'm just going to pop that out, and we're going to give it a quick, oops. Should probably get some of those magnetic soft jaws, huh? That'd be fancy. All right, we're going to pop this in, and we're going to do a little test fit. You know, this is the monotonous part of putting a 1911 together. If you use Sharpie like me, your hands are just going to turn blue. If you use Dykem, your hands are just going to turn blue, or purple, or red, or whatever color you choose. We're going to recolor the top here. Okay. Recolor our feed ramp. And whenever I do one of these, my hands are blue for like a week. Okay, so let's pop this bad boy in. Link down. Okay. Now, like I said, even if the slide clears the barrel now, it doesn't mean anything. We're concerned about the feed ramp. That's what we're concerned with. And getting the barrel to clear the slide is just a product of fitting the feed ramp. Okay, so we can go a little further. In fact, we can basically get to the end of the stroke, but we're still rubbing. Okay, I'll mark that back up. Okay. Okay, so start that again. And that is much easier. Okay, and we can get to the end of the stroke, but there's a lot of resistance. Okay, right at the end. You can see it coming right over the top there now. You can see that wear right there. So we're going to go back at it. We're going to remove remove more, but we're also going to be taking a look at the feed ramp, most importantly. In fact, yeah, I can kind of just, I can wear that in by hand. Okay, that's not what you want to do though. Okay, but I'm going to take a look at the feed ramp, and we'll see how much more we're going to take off. I'll come out. This thing does not want to play nice right now. Why? Why do you not want to play nice? Okay. So, all right. So just like I was talking about earlier with your slide stop not being fit properly, and you'll get some wear marks right in the center. So right now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but right in the center of the slide stop pin, I can begin to see where the link is riding on the slide stop. So let that be an indicator to you as you're fitting this. That's why it was difficult to punch it out right now, is it was kind of cranked in there. And okay, where are we? Okay, gotcha. This one's tricky. All right, so I'm looking at the bottom of the feed ramp here, knowing where we're contacting, and I can see it. It's right on. It's on the edges. Okay, it's on the edges right here. where we're contacting. So what that tells me is I may have filed just a hair more in the center of the feed ramp and on the edges. So I'll take a little extra time to file on the edges. And you know, we can even take a measurement, right? Yep, okay. So yeah, I could hardly touch the edges at all, but we did get the center down, so now we'll pay attention specifically to the edges there to bring the edges back down level with the center. Just taking nice easy strokes, making sure that I'm putting more pressure kind of to the side. And that's what's really nice about having these safe edge files. I can really push the file up against the edge of the frame and I don't have to worry about damaging it. Again, keeping the file nice and straight and flat in my stroke. Okay. Give my file 90 degrees, nice and flat. Rotate that file over. Let's take a measurement. Yep. Okay, so that's right there. That. Okay, this one needs a little bit more. Okay. So this side closer to me needs a little bit more. That's going to be that's the high spot right now. Oh, that's okay. Just remove a little bit more material. That's all. If you don't have any patience for this type of stuff, you might want to go to Walmart and see if there's some on sale and get it in bulk. Because this is what fitting in 1911 is. Okay, let's see here. Oop. Can't see what I'm measuring. Okay, got about 2/1000ths to go until we're level with the center. It's 2/1000ths of an inch. I could literally do that in just a couple strokes here. All right, clean the file off. Really making sure I get the corner. A lot of times you have the tendency when you're on an edge like that, when you're pushing down, to want to push and roll the file and put more pressure on what's your right side of the file. If I'm up against this, the left edge for you, you'll have the tendency to want to kind of push it like this and put more pressure on the right side than on the left side. And it's that left inside corner that we're really concerned about dropping down, not the middle. Let's come back. We'll measure here. Boom, perfect. Okay, we just got 1/1000th of an inch to go on the right side to you. So I'm just going to take a couple strokes. And measure. Just a little more. We're really talking about like less than 1/1000th of an inch right now. I'm just being nitpicky. Okay. That'll do it, and let's pop her back together. Put some more Sharpie in there. And, okay. So now that we've dropped it down, about a total of 6/1000 across. We'll see what happens. I can already tell there's, you know, oh, hey, all right. Let's recolor all the worn areas. Boring stuff. There we go. Okay, so now we got clearance, right? Just kind of dragging on the back there. You can see sorry, okay. So I'm smacking the front of the barrel here to transfer the wear marks and the wear patterns from the feed ramp to the frame, and that's going to tell me where the fitting points are. So we'll do this a few times, and same thing, we're going to pop it apart. Yeah, see, now this pops out really nice and easy. All right, oh man, we're going to be good. That is, I love it when the plane comes. You gotta let me grab a pointer. Okay, so we've got our contact marks right across the center. And that is beautiful and perfect. Now, when I look down in here, the lighting's not that great. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll show you on the barrel. Okay, we've got wear pattern across the top. We're starting to get contact across the top of the vertical surface here on the feed ramp. So that means we're beginning to come into contact on both the top and the bottom at the same time. So all we need to do now is just start correcting to get contact all the way across the bottom. So we have even contact and even pressure. And that is typically how it's going to happen. You're going to start getting contact at either the top of it or the bottom of it first before you get contact all the way across. So let me get the camera set back up, and we'll come back and we'll talk more about fitting that part right there. All right, so now we got it focused way in. You can kind of see right across here in the vertical impact surface. You just start to see some Sharpie transfer. Okay, so we're getting contact across the top right there. And when we look at it here, we can see wear across the center. And there's little wear marks all the way across. Okay, and that's good. That's excellent. That's what we want. Now, if I show you the barrel, okay, you can see the wear across the top here where it transferred into the frame. And like I was saying, it's typically going to start at the top or the bottom, and then you have to correct to get all the way up, because you don't just want the top beating into the corners. So right now, that corner between the top of the feed ramp and the frame and the vertical impact surface in the frame was beating against this, and that's not good. You're going to cause a lot of wear like that, because that frame isn't steel; it's aluminum. So you got a stainless steel barrel slamming into it. That's not good. That's why we want to spread load that contact all the way up and down here so that we have even contact. And the pressure from this barrel downlinking and hitting it is spread out across this whole surface and across both surfaces, okay? And you can't really see the contact on here. You can kind of see just some light rubbing across the top there. Where it transferred over, and you can kind of see a couple little marks right in there from the frame. But this is good. This is very good. So now All we got to do is just keep dropping that surface down just a little at a time. And I'll talk about that angle, okay? So let's bring the frame back. So we already discussed that when the barrel downlinks, it's sitting at roughly a 1 degree angle. Per the book, if you do the math, it's 0.87 degrees. Fit to the part, okay? Don't fit to a textbook number, fit to the actual part itself. So if the barrel is sitting at an exaggerated angle like this, okay, and we're hitting at the top right here, what that tells me is we need to drop the back here, okay? This surface right here is not going to be perfectly level, okay? It's going to need to be at that same angle, okay, as the barrel being unlocked, okay, that same 1 degree. And once we do that, we'll get the full contact up and down, because it's got to match, okay? So let me get reset up and we'll get to work. Okay, got this set back up in the vise, and this time when we file, I'm not necessarily filing straight across. I'm just going to have just a hair bit of an angle to it to give us the same angle as the barrel unlocking, so we can start to create contact points all the way down, okay? And it's also going to drop to allow the barrel to drop just a hair more. We still need to clear the barrel. If you remember, we're still riding just a little bit. And the good way to do this is just to kind of put pressure with your strokes. So really, I'm keeping the file level, but I'm pressing down more on the back end. And that puts more pressure on the back where I want to remove material. And you can watch your wear marks on here, and they should start from the back and move forward as you remove more material. If you're not good at watching wear marks, you can just use some Sharpie or any other type of marking method, and you'll be able to see the Sharpie kind of disappear as you're removing material from the back. And again, I'm keeping the file level right now, but I'm just pressing on the back, and you can kind of see that I'm removing material from the back instead of the front, and then it's going to catch up in the angle. Okay, so let's take the measurement back to front. Okay, so right now we're about 0.02 further down than the front. The front sitting at about 304, the back sitting at about 306, 307. Okay, I'm not taking huge chunks of metal at a time. I literally just remove like 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch, but that's how you do this. Okay, just a little bit at a time until it's just right. So mark it back up, fit it back together. I'm just going to do this one time, just to kind of show the process of this, and then I'm going to do the rest of the fitting off camera, and I'll come back to you when we got it good, just to show you what it should look like. Okay. Okay, so that is nice and slick and smooth now. You still see just a hair rubbing there on the back end, and again, that's okay, because we're still going to be removing more material. And here we go, just popping the muzzle a few times, driving the feed ramp of the frame, or the barrel, into the frame to create the wear points and our contact pattern. How many times do you need to do it? Well, you know, do it until you feel good about it, right? Had a bad day at work? Hey, come fit a barrel. All right. Come on. Okay. Okay. Looking good. Looking real good. Okay, so we're starting to get some more blue running down the vertical impact surface. I'm beginning to see more of a wear contact down. Now we're about halfway down, and I've still got contact on the top, but now the wear marks are half to a little over the halfway down the vertical portion, the foot here. So I'm just going to repeat, I'm going to keep repeating this process just a little bit at a time. We just saw how much 2.5 thousandths of material removal in the right spot can affect the contact here. I removed 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch of material off the back end to kind of create the angle, and we moved the contact point from maybe less than a fourth, fifth of the way down to just over half the way down on here. So I'm going to repeat that same process, a little bit of material removal at a time. We're going to come back and you're going to see contact all the way down here and contact across the top. All right. So when we come back, it'll all be fitted up. All right, we are back and we are all fitted up. So this is what we're looking for. I've removed approximately another 5 thousandths of an inch since you guys saw this last. And what I'm looking at right now, what we're looking at is wear from the top all the way to the bottom right here. Okay. It's not a solid blue color. When you're just hitting something, two vertical surfaces against each other, you're not going to see like hard contact. You're just going to kind of see this rubbing, wiping type contact, but it's all the way down. We can see this a little better. There's some transfer from all the way up and down here, and then you can still see the wear. Again, just that tapping, wiping type of contact on the top. So we are in full contact, top and bottom. With the see, it's kind of hard to see it on the barrel here, but we are in full contact with both this surface and this surface at the same time when we are unlocked, and that's what we've been shooting for this whole time. So that aids in longevity as well as cycling issues, eliminates unnecessary wear on the gun, on the frame, especially when we're talking about an aluminum frame gun. We don't have nice hard steel to take the beating. We've got to be able to distribute the forces of recoil into the aluminum as best possible, okay? And that's what we accomplish here. So we're going to do one last thing. We're going to put it together under spring power, and we're going to let this thing operate under its own spring power and just kind of see what that looks like. All right, so let me get the camera set back up, and we'll be right back. All right, let's get this thing put back together, huh? Now that my hands are sufficiently blue, cousin to the Smurf family, all gunsmiths are anyways. So, what am I doing here? Okay. This guy goes in here. Wrong part. I gotta go grab a part. All right, getting ready to put this thing back together. We got our bushing cranked all the way over. Gonna put the spring in for the very first time. All right, so I like to do this upside down. Gets a little trickier when you get that spring floating around in there, right? Kind of makes you appreciate the full-length guide rod a little bit. If you've never if you don't have one with a full-length guide rod, it kind of makes this step a little bit easier. Some people don't like the full-length guide rods just because they're kind of a pain to take down. You gotta have a special little wire and stuff to capture the spring. Come on. There we go. Okay. Put our little shop-made spring plug in. And if I thought this thing was tight before, the bushing that is, I didn't realize just how tight this thing was until I had to crank it all the way over. There we go. Come on. There we go. All right. We are under spring power now. Yeah, there we go. All right. That is snazzy. All right, so barrel is fully fitted into the gun now. Don't have any issues with the barrel sliding around. Barrel is nice and tight in there. Our bushing is good. We're not springing. We do have lockup. One last thing we're going to check is actually the lockup of the gun. What I'm talking about with lockup, excuse me, when we're talking about lockup, we're talking about how much of the upper lugs in the barrel are engaged into the slide. And quick way to measure that, I'm not going to use the depth mic for this. I'm just going to use this right here. I'm not looking for an exact amount. I just need ballpark figures. So I'm going to pick the same spot to measure off of, which for me is going to be right next to the radius in the slide right here. Okay, so I'm going to measure that right there. Okay, that's 148 thou. And then I'm just going to cheat this back. And I'm going to take that same measurement. Now this would be a lot easier if I didn't have the spring in there. I'm holding the spring back right now. So right next to the radius and the slide, 193 thousandths. So what does that tell me? 193 divided by 148. So what's the difference between 93 and 48? What's that, 45? Yep. Okay, so 45 thousandths of lockup, of engagement. That's great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Somewhere in the 30 to 50 range. If you go over 50, you're going to start running, you run the risk, I should say. You run the risk of running into issues with your upper lugs not fitting. And then you got to go into fitting all that. And if you want to see fitting of upper lugs, go back and watch the bull barrel fitting, because we actually had to do a little bit of that. Okay. And I explained in that video how to check for that and how to correct that issue. Okay. So we have 45 thousandths of upper lug engagement, which is great. We got a nice tight barrel hood fit. We got a nice tight muzzle fit with a great fitting bushing. We are free and clear under spring pressure. The slide stop engages and releases, which is, of course, it doesn't have any other parts in it right now. So yeah, I guess the only thing we really need to check now, we need to start going into internal components. But before we do that, I'm going to make this slide super wicked frickin' awesome. I actually just finished making the rear sight. If you guys are following me on Facebook at Windisch Gunworks, you guys will see I just posted this up, or maybe I put it on my personal page, I'm not sure. But anyways, I know in the beginning of this, I told you I was going to make the front and rear sight for this gun. Well, there's the rear sight. Just kind of a generic rear sight. It's got a little ledge on there for one-handed operation. So all the tactical guys will be happy about that. Here's the front sight, super tall. It's just a blank basically right now. And we'll trim I'll trim this down once we get it in the gun, and once we actually like shoot it. I'll be able to calculate the proper height, and I'll trim that down. And same with this. I may trim the back of this down. It just kind of looks a little tall to me, so I don't want kind of like a low profile deal, but I still want there to be enough of a ledge here for one-handed operation. Oops, sorry about that. So, yep, just made that guy up last night. So, pretty happy with that. First time making a rear sight. I think it came out pretty good. It's cut for a Novak dovetail, 65 degree by 495. And this is a Novak front. So, yeah, the next steps will be to take this bad boy over to the mill. My plans right now is just to do a tri-top. So we'll flatten off the top and then angle it 45 degrees on either side. We'll cut in the sights, put the sights in there. I still don't know what I'm going to do for front and rear serrations. I know we're going to do a ball cut back to here. And then I'm thinking about doing a high power cut up here, which is just a thinning cut down to the width of the dust cover. So it'll come back with a radius right here, and then the ball cut, nice ball cut meeting right there. I don't know. I may go classic with just some slanted serrations, front and rear. I may go kind of crazy. I've got this kind of idea in my head. If you know what the SCI Ep4 is, it's got kind of the slashes kind of going across. I can do that with an angled fly cutter, and kind of get these crazy slash-like marks going across for serrations. Across the top, we're going to do a simple line pattern across the top, simple serrations going back, and then back here we're going to take a huge old chunk out in the middle. We're going to do a pocket in the middle. It might just end up being like a big sliding cut, but we're going to take a huge chunk of metal here out of the back to lighten this thing up. Being a 9mm, we really got to make this slide nice and light to ensure proper operation and a nice light recoil. Again, lightweight gun is what we're going for, so I'm going to take as much metal out of the slide as I possibly can. And like I was saying earlier about this gun, we've got to take into account that this is a commander on government hate crime going on here. So we're going to have to modify the frame a little bit. But next episode is going to be all about modifying the slide. If you're not into the machining work or you just don't care, stick around for the next episode. Because after we do the slide, we're going to come back in and we're going to start doing some of the external components, thumb safety, grip safety, fitting those parts in, trigger components, getting the trigger components fitted up. Really, we're kind of on the, mechanically anyways, we're on the back end of it. Because all we got left is to fit the thumb safety, fit the grip safety, fit some of the trigger components, and get the mainspring housing in. Mainspring housing doesn't need any fitting. And I'm going to tell you right now, the grip safety is going to need almost zero fitting whatsoever, or blending, I should say, blending. Fitting, of course, is fitting for the arm and the grip safety, but mechanically, we're definitely on the downhill. So I'll make the slide awesome. We'll finish up the mechanics of it, and then we might get it out to the range before it's fully done, just to kind of do proof of concept and show this thing shooting. All right, thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you guys next time. Hey, just real quick, almost forgot. I was going to give a shout out to my buddy here. Before I go, if you guys noticed my wrist here and this bracelet, if any of you guys have shot 50 caliber BMG before, that's going to look familiar, okay? So I got a really good friend of mine named Ted Simpson. He does, his company is called Dark Soul Design, that's his logo. He does some wicked awesome Cerakote And he sent me a box with some slides to do some site work and stuff. He sent me some Glock slides too to kind of do whatever I want with. So he kind of threw one of these my way. He makes kind of gun bling stuff. So he makes some wicked awesome bracelets, and you can pretty much ask for whatever case head you want in your bracelet, and he'll put it in there, and he polishes them all up really nice. He does all the weaving by hand with nice strong metal. This isn't plastic. This is metal. Yeah, it's aluminum. Clasp, super durable, and he makes some other stuff, memento mori bracelets, real nice stuff. He does the copper linking, hand. I don't know what he calls it, but with the copper links, like chainmail. He links all the chain together with copper chains and stuff. I think he does some titanium stuff too. But super awesome stuff. Check him out, Ted Simpson, Dark Soul Design. He's all over Instagram. He's on Facebook too, but mostly on Instagram. Go check him out. These are pretty affordable too, and they're pretty unique. So head to the range with one of these and show all your gun buddies your cool bracelet, and I bet they'll be like, oh man, that's super cool. Bracelets aren't just for chicks. It's gun bling. So I'm super happy with it. Looks super cool, and I'm definitely going to keep wearing mine. So anyways, there you go. Check them out. Reload, let freedom ring.